In this video, you will learn how to add and subtract decimals. The most important thing to remember when adding and subtracting decimals is to line up the decimal. Why do we have to line up the decimal? Because each place has a value. We'll use money to represent the worth or the value of each place. Here you can see a penny in the hundredths place. We don't have any money that represents the thousandths or the 10,000th place. To do that, we would have to take a penny and cut it into 10 equal pieces to make thousandths. And then we would have to take one of those tenths and cut that into 10 equal pieces to make 10,000ths. That would be really small. In the tenths place, we'll put a dime. A dime is 10 pennies. Then, as we cross over the decimal into the ones place, we will put $1 there. $1 is 10 dimes. In the tens place, we will put, a $10 bill. $10 is 10 $1 bills. In the hundreds place, we will put a $100 bill. $100 is 10 tens. And finally, we reached the thousands place. In the thousands place, we'll put a $1,000 bill. Yes, they actually did exist. However, apparently they stopped printing them in 1969. I learned that when I found the graphic. So why did I fill up this place value chart with money? Because if we were to take two decimal numbers and line them up and add them, we would have to make sure that we lined up all the pennies in the pennies column, the dimes in the dime column, ones in the one column, tens in the tens column, etc. If we mix them up or if we switched them over a little bit, we would be adding dimes to pennies. That would mess up our total number. So it's really, really important that you line up the decimals when adding and subtracting decimals. Let's look at an example. Example number 1, 13 plus 6 4/10 plus 2 78/100. Let's stack them up. But how do we line them up? Do we move them over here like this? No, I don't see the decimals lined up. What about this way? I know I remember hearing that I'm supposed to line up my numbers on the right. The decimals aren't lined up again though. So 13 doesn't even have a decimal. Must be that stands for something like $13. So the 3 must be in the ones place. So I'll line up the 3 with the 6 and the 2 that are also in the ones place. And then I'm going to have to put a decimal after the 13. There we go. I've got them all lined up. The decimal is in a straight line up and down. I have 13 0 hundredths, 6 40 hundredths, 2 78 hundredths, and they're all lined up. They all kind of look like money. Now let's add the farthest column to the right. That is the hundredths column. 0 plus 0 plus 8 equals 8, 8 hundredths. 0 plus 4 plus 7 equals 11. So I put the first one that stands for 10 up above the next column, and I put the second one of 11 down below the tenths column. Can't forget the decimal, put that in your answer. Now we'll add the ones column. 3 plus 6 plus 2 plus that 1 that we carried over from the previous column is 12. So we put the 1 that represents the 10 of 12 up above the next column and the 2 from 12 down below the ones column. And finally, we will add the tens column. 1 plus the 1 that we carried over from the previous column is 2. 10 plus 10 really is what it means, is 20. So 13 plus 6 4/10 plus 2 78 hundredths equals 22 18 hundredths. Example number 2, subtraction. $50 minus $28.67. Okay, let's stack them up. We have to make sure the number that's bigger is on the top. I don't have the decimals lined up yet though. Is it like this? No, it's going to need to go here. The 50 and the 28 both have the same place values. So the 0 represents the number of $1 bills, and the 8 represents $1 bills. And the 5 represents $10 bills, and so does the 2. So I'll line those up. But then I don't have any cents with 50. So let's put some cents on. There we go. Just had to add the decimal and a couple of zeros. Let's start subtracting. So a lot of people would make the mistake of subtracting up. So for example, we have to start all the way to the right with the hundredths column, the one with the 0 and the 7. Some people would say, what's 7 minus 0? And they subtract up. That's a mistake. Don't ever do that. You have to start at the top and go 0 minus 7. Well, we know we really can't do 0 minus 7. It would be maybe -7, but in a problem like this, negatives would just kind of mess us up. So no negatives here. So 0 minus 7 we can't do. So we don't have any pennies to take 7 away from. So we're going to have to go over to the dimes, to the tenths column. And we're going to have to take a dime and break it up into pennies so that we have pennies to take 7 away. But there aren't any dimes. So we have to go over to the $1 bills. In the 50, there aren't any $1 bills. So we can't break up a $1 bill into dimes. So we have to go over to the tens, the $10 bills. There are 5 $10 bills. So let's take one of those $10 bills. So now we have 4 $10 bills left. And the one that we took away, we're going to break that into 10 $1. So now the dimes can borrow from the ones. So we can take one of those $1 bills and break it up into dimes. So now we only have 9 $1 bills, but we have 10 dimes. And finally, the pennies can borrow from the dimes. So let's take one of the dimes, break it up into 10 pennies, and then we finally will be able to subtract 7 pennies. Now that we've done all the borrowing, we can go ahead and subtract. In the pennies column, 10 minus 7 is 3. Moving on to the hundredths column, or the dimes, 9 minus 6 is 3. Don't forget to put the decimal in your answer. Now the ones, 9 minus 8 is 1. And finally the tens, 4 minus 2 is 2. $50 minus $28.67 equals $21.33. Now you should know how to add and subtract decimals. Thanks for watching.